Hello, Scrufftards. Welcome back to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And we're going to explore the very real possibility that Ukraine will cross the Dnipro in 2024. So, what is all this about? Well, it began with the Netherlands coming out and saying that they were supplying Ukraine with combat boats and some high-speed transports, and then Sweden said the same, that they were gonna provide combat boat 90 and transports. And in total, it all ended up being 13 combat boat 90, which is a heavy assault craft armed with 50 cal machine guns, miniguns, grenade launchers, and what have you, capable of transporting 18 Marines. And the total for the high-speed transports, the G-boats, ended up being 42 unarmed, but they can transport 6 to 8 troops each. And that got us thinking, well, that means something's probably going to be happening on the Dnipro, right? And then Finland came out and said that they will provide an unknown number of an unknown class of boats to Ukraine. But what we do know is that Romania will train 50 Ukrainians on how to operate these Finnish boats. So the question is, will Finland provide Jehu or Jormo G-boats? Who knows? But we do know that Finland will provide boats and 50 Ukrainians will be trained on how to operate them. Jehu requires a crew of 5, Jormo a crew of 2, so one or the other or a mix, who knows? But this is what we learned a month ago or so. So that set up the very real possibility that Ukraine was planning something on the Dnipro. And then just the other day, the UK told us that they were providing Ukraine with an extremely large aid package. And in that aid package, we learned that the UK has pledged 60 boats of various types to help Ukraine, according to Ukraine's specific requests and demands. And included among these are offshore raiding craft, also known as ORC. And each ORC is operated by a crew of 2 and can transport up to 8 soldiers or Marines. So Ukraine will receive well beyond 100 transport craft, some of which are heavily armed and armored, to allow them to transport large amounts of infantry across bodies of water. Very interesting. And of course, this is not gone unnoticed by Russia. So Russia appears to recreate their old Dnipro River flotilla that was last active during World War II. Recently announced, it appears as a direct result of Ukraine receiving the combat boat 90s. Not much is known yet of this new fighting force, but it is speculated that it will include special forces and a large marine contingent equipped with fast-moving boats to counter Ukrainian activity on the Dnipro River. What is reported, however, as fact is that the new river flotilla will include the A-222 Bereg coastal artillery units, a self-propelled 130mm gun that is said to be able to hit targets moving at 185 kilometers per hour. Pinch of salt, but who knows? That Ukraine receives these amphibious capabilities allows them the chance to open up a new front in the Kherson region by crossing the Dnipro more effectively. This will allow Ukraine to bypass the powerful Surovikin Line. This fact on its own will force Russia to allocate a lot of resources to the Kherson region in order to prevent a successful Ukrainian assault across the river. The amount of vessels Ukraine will receive will allow them several options. A massive push deploying a huge number of soldiers in very short time, or a steady flow of troops and equipment to support established beachheads with the ability to easily replace craft lost to incoming fire and drones. Or staging attacks on multiple locations, maybe dozens of smaller incursions, or a couple of larger assaults. Historically, a proper defensive line has always been avoided, and the best way to defeat it is to go around it. The two best examples from modern times are how Germany in World War II avoided the Maginot Line and how the US avoided the Iraqi defenses in Kuwait during the Gulf War. If you try and go through the defensive line, you end up with what the Soviets suffered in Finland during the Winter War of 1939 to 1940, as they tried to push through the Mannerheim Line, and what Ukraine experienced during the summer offensive of 2023. Ukraine can go around the Surovikin Line in the north, but that means going through Russia proper, which doesn't feel like a realistic option. The second option is to cross the Dnipro River at Kherson, and by so doing, avoid the Russian main defenses and threaten Crimea. And if you ask me, Ukraine has 5 options where to launch an assault relying on these new craft, and that would be Krinky, where they have a beachhead, at Antonov Bridge, where they have established a foothold, and there are 2 important bridges, the Antonov Bridge and a railroad bridge right next to it. Then you have the Dnipro Delta, a lot of waterways that you can move in and out and try and avoid detection and reach occupied territory. The Dnipronivska Gulf, and trying to cross from Ukrainian held territory straight across and get a beachhead, or the peninsula over here where you can come across from Ochakiv and establish a beachhead and then slowly fight your way inland until you have the peninsula, and that will allow you to ship over more troops. And here we have Krinky, and as you can see on the map here, Ukraine is holding on to parts of the town. This middle section here, you have from this patch of woods here all the way down to the road here. And what Ukraine can do and is doing is using Tiahinka as a base of operations, and then sending boats out to the Dnipro River, and then rely on these small canals here to getting close to the mainland and exploiting the Konka River to moving back and forth and land troops. I mean, if you have 100 boats, you can move a lot of troops over the Dnipro in short order and get them into hidden bases and what have you, and campsites and all of that good stuff on the this side of the river. And yeah, so Ukraine will more than likely in that case come down this way and then get across and enter by these 2 rivers here. They are probably gonna be heavily guarded or by drones, Russian drones, having a look at these locations, and so probably Ukraine will have to make landfall here and then walk in, and Russia with their new flotilla could rely on smaller boats to move along the Konka River here to patrol and quickly move reinforcements back and forth where needed. But Ukraine has established a foothold here in this part of town. They control this small island, so it probably won't be all that difficult for Ukraine to get troops across and then slowly make their way over to the town where they are still holding on and have an effective beachhead established. And I mean, take a look at this. You can, here you have a lake. This is the Konka River down here. Up here is the Dnipro. I mean, if you can sneak in here, reach this lake, you can go down this stream, you can go down here, you can the canal here, and then you can sneak your way through, and then you're in the Konka River, and then you can get troops onto occupied territory or establish hidden base camps all over the territory here. So Russia will need to patrol the Konka River here, would be my guess that they will be doing, in order to try and locate the Ukrainians as they're sneaking in through these small canals to try and reach occupied territory. And same thing goes for here. Here you have the Antonov Bridge, and we have zoomed in on this section. Take a look. I mean, if you are in Kherson and get across here, you can get in this way, and all of a sudden you can establish a foothold in occupied territory in pretty short order. I mean, a couple of dozen of these transport boats, and you can have 100, 200 soldiers deployed in occupied territory in 30 minutes, basically. So yeah, all these small canals, the Konka River, is what Ukraine will have to use to their advantage, and the Russians, yeah, they need to patrol all of it in order to keep an eye on the Ukrainians and not let them through the Russian defenses. And the same thing goes for the Dnipro Delta. I mean, here you have all these canals and what have you that Ukraine can sneak in through to reach occupied territory. And like I said, in 30 minutes, an hour, they can get 100, 200 soldiers across and potentially, say, occupy and hide within this forest here, maybe launch an assault against the town here or down here and what have you. So a lot of waterways that Ukraine can exploit in order to sneak across. Sure, there will be hundreds of drones flying around looking for them, but they can get across, they can sneak across. And the Russians, they need to patrol every inch of these waterways to prevent 50, 100, 200 Ukrainians from getting across and establishing a beachhead. And the significance is substantial because Russia has two main supply lines leading in from Crimea towards the front line and towards the Kherson area, and that goes through here and through here. And as you can see, this is basically just waterways. So there's only really these two main routes to choose from if you want to bring in logistics to the front line. And if Ukraine can get across here and here, they are very close to these supply routes coming in from Crimea. And yeah, if Ukraine can get across and establish a proper foothold here, they are in a very good position to continue westward to cut these logistical lines coming in from Crimea, which would force Russia to move troops from the front line up here to help out in holding the line down here. That could, in the long run, allow Ukrainian forces over here to punch through at Verbove, right? So, and yes, if Ukraine grabs this territory here, there's a canal here that is very useful for defensive purposes. If they can grab this territory, then they're in a position to launch raids across the bay towards Crimea as well. So Russia will allocate resources to prevent this from happening. And it appears as if Ukraine is building up its its amphibious forces to allow this to become reality. So, if Ukraine can properly cross the Dnipro, I think it's safe to assume that Russia will allocate resources from the Tokmak area and Crimea to counter the situation. That could give Ukraine a chance to try and push through at Verbove and breach the Surovikin Line. To prevent this, Russia would most likely move troops from other sections of the front, and by so doing, impede Russian ability for offensive operations in those areas. In 2023, Russia blew up the Kakhovka Dam to prevent a river crossing and to allow Russia to move troops from the Dnipro area to reinforce the Tokmak section of the front line. In 2024, Russia has no such options available. And I do believe that with all this news coming out that Ukraine is getting all these boats, all these assault craft, I think that Russia will step up its attempts to reclaim Krinky. Krinky is a dangerous beachhead now that Ukraine will get all these assets that will allow them to ship troops and equipment across the river much more effectively. So Russia needs to get rid of these beachheads, Krinky especially. So I think we will see an increase in efforts from Russia to push Ukraine out of Krinky these coming weeks. To deny them the chance to reinforce this beachhead and expand upon it. So I think the troops that are currently in Krinky, they are in for one hell of a fight in the coming weeks, is my prediction. That will have to be it. I have nothing more to add this time, at least, other than what I've already said. It sure as hell looks as if Ukraine has something planned for the Dnipro and the Kherson area, and I'm willing to bet that we will see larger operations from Ukraine trying to get troops across and put pressure on the Russians, and by so doing avoid the heavily defended Surovikin Line. And hopefully it will succeed. And with that, go på marsch, Ukraine, give them hell.